6 years of my life disappeared while I fought something I never fully understood at all. Every single morning, I woke up feeling like I was already losing a silent, invisible battle completely. Doctors handed me generic advice, nutritionists gave me rigid meal plans, and none of it ever truly worked. I cut calories dramatically, timed every workout meticulously, and pushed through strict fasting protocols consistently week after week. Some of those things helped slightly, but something invisible was always missing from my entire approach entirely. I kept blaming myself for a lack of discipline when the real answer was hiding in plain sight. That frustration of doing everything right and still not moving the needle is something most people understand deeply. If you have felt that frustration, I want you to know right now that you are not alone. Nobody ever sat me down and explained this one breakfast habit that changes absolutely everything about hunger. This single morning habit tells your brain to shut off the appetite signals that are driving your overeating. When you have insulin resistance, turning off those relentless appetite signals is absolutely the most critical thing possible. Before we go any further, you need to understand the real foundation behind insulin resistance itself completely. The biggest driver of insulin resistance inside your body is inflammation, and it runs deep and persistent always.
The most inflammatory substance inside your body is adipose tissue, which is simply your stored body fat accumulated. The more stored fat you carry, the more inflammation circulates and actively blocks insulin from reaching your cells. If this breakfast strategy helps you shed body fat consistently, inflammation begins dropping in a real, measurable way. When inflammation drops, insulin finally reaches your cells the way it was always supposed to naturally function perfectly. When that finally happens, the whole system begins correcting itself in ways that dieting alone rarely ever achieves. Before I tell you what this breakfast habit is, let me be clear about what it is not. It is not fasting, and I know that is the very first assumption most people immediately and naturally make. Fasting absolutely has its place, and I have done it extensively, but this approach is completely and entirely different. This approach has everything to do with protein, but not in the basic way you have always been hearing. For years, the entire protein conversation and nutrition centered around just one single thing only. That one thing is that eating protein keeps you feeling full and satisfied for longer periods of time. That is true and a real benefit, but this mechanism works at a completely different biological level entirely. This specific mechanism was published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition back in 2005 without fanfare. Then it quietly disappeared from mainstream conversation, and barely anyone ever discussed or brought it up again afterward. It started resurfacing about a year ago in certain research circles and completely shifted everything in my understanding. In this video, I am going to walk you through 3 things that could genuinely change how you feel. First, I will explain what this breakfast protein approach is and exactly why it works at your brain level. Second, I will go through the specific foods that make this the most powerful and effective version possible. Third, I will give you a complete daily protocol you can start following as early as tomorrow morning. Let us start at the very beginning with the concept that makes every single part of this work. That concept is called protein leverage, and it is the absolute foundational key to everything we are covering here. Protein leverage is a biological mechanism identified through research observing how humans and animals regulate protein intake carefully. Animals and humans share a biological drive to keep eating until a specific internal protein target gets met. This has been observed consistently across dozens of different species, and the pattern holds true every single time. It is not a fringe idea or a theory. It is a well-documented and reproducible biological observation consistently. Your hypothalamus and your liver are constantly monitoring how much protein you consume against a specific internal target daily. If that target is not met, your brain sends powerful hunger signals that drive you to keep eating. These are not mild suggestions coming from your brain. They are strong biological drives that override your willpower entirely. This explains something most people with insulin resistance constantly experience, but can never fully name or understand at all. You eat a reasonable meal, feel briefly satisfied, but within 1 to 2 hours, hunger returns at full force. You keep reaching for snacks, keep looking for something else, feeling like you have absolutely zero self-control left. But it is not a lack of self-control. It is your brain demanding its protein target be fully met. Because most people spread protein thinly across the day, they never actually hit that target in any meaningful way. So hunger signals stay elevated throughout the entire day. Carb cravings spike constantly, and calorie intake creeps quietly higher. Research tells us the minimum protein target your body always seeks is 0.6 grams per pound of body weight. Here is the key insight that makes this breakfast strategy so powerful and completely different from everything else available. You want to try to hit that entire brain protein target at your very first meal of the morning. Newer research has confirmed the body can fully absorb and utilize protein even in very large single servings. This removes the old fear that eating too much protein in one sitting is somehow wasteful or harmful. You can sit down at breakfast, eat a high-protein meal, and your body will use every bit efficiently. When you do this, your brain receives the exact signal it has been patiently waiting for all along. The relentless hunger drive begins shutting off, and the appetite suppression that follows is genuinely and remarkably powerful. This is not the slow fullness that comes from fiber or fat sitting heavily inside your stomach after eating. It is a neurological and hormonal signal telling your brain at a fundamental level that you are fully satisfied. Once that signal is received, something remarkable begins happening to your eating behavior for the rest of the day. You eat less at lunch without trying. You have far fewer afternoon cravings without fighting them at all. You simply need less food overall without any conscious effort or mental willpower being required from you whatsoever. When intake drops naturally, your body begins burning stored fat to meet its energy needs throughout the day. And when stored fat burns consistently, the adipose tissue driving inflammation starts shrinking, and inflammation levels fall significantly. Lower inflammation means insulin can finally connect with your cells the way it was always designed and intended to. And insulin resistance begins correcting itself in a way that standard calorie restriction diets have never fully managed alone. The reason this approach works better than calorie restriction is that it works with your biology, not against it. Standard calorie restriction keeps your hunger signals running loudly all day while you try to fight them alone. But protein leverage turns those hunger signals off directly at the source, making the whole process feel almost effortless. Once your brain stops sending those urgent eat more signals, your body begins actively calming inflammation from within naturally. Counter-regulatory hormones are secreted that directly address the very inflammation that has been blocking insulin from your cells. A powerful and positive cycle then builds on itself every single day, compounding in strength over time naturally. I wish I had known all of this 6 full years ago when I first began my struggle. But knowing it now and being able to share it with you is honestly the very next best thing. And the beautiful thing is that you can start applying all of this immediately as of tomorrow morning confidently. Now, let us talk about how the rest of your day should look after you nail your breakfast protein. Breakfast is the foundational base, but the way you handle your remaining meals determines how well everything functions together. After finishing breakfast, give your body about 30 to 45 minutes to comfortably begin digesting everything properly. This is the right moment to take a quality probiotic or pour yourself a comforting glass of kefir. This matters because your gut and hypothalamus communicate constantly through the gut-brain axis every single day. When your gut microbiome is healthy and sufficiently diverse, that communication actively supports healthy appetite regulation throughout the day. Research has consistently shown a meaningful connection between gut health, insulin sensitivity, and inflammatory markers throughout the body. Supporting your gut after a high-protein breakfast reinforces everything the protein leverage signal just accomplished and sustains it. When it comes to lunch, the strategy is not about hitting another massive protein target in one more sitting. It is about preventing yourself from overeating at that meal in a natural and effortless biological way instead. One of the most effective and practical tools at lunch is a fast-digesting whey protein shake beforehand. This sounds unusual at first, but the logic is completely straightforward and backed by the exact same protein science. Even with your brain target already hit, protein sensing mechanisms still operate around each individual meal you eat. A fast whey protein shake hits those receptors quickly enough that your brain is already partially satisfied before eating.
The result is you naturally eat a smaller and more appropriate lunch without counting a single calorie at all. You serve yourself a reasonable plate, eat it comfortably, and simply do not feel any urge for seconds. That is the kind of effortless, automatic portion control that most diets repeatedly promise but never actually deliver. And it comes entirely from your own biology rather than from discipline, making it genuinely sustainable long-term. Now, let us talk about dinner. And this is where most people with insulin resistance get genuinely surprised initially. I want you to move your carbohydrates entirely to dinner time, and I know that sounds backwards completely. Most people with insulin resistance assume that eating carbohydrates at night will spike blood sugar and create overnight problems. But something called the second meal effect actually makes eating carbs earlier in the day far more problematic overall. When you eat carbohydrates at lunch, those carbs compound and directly influence your blood sugar response later at dinner. The glucose from lunch actually makes your body less equipped to handle glucose at dinner, raising overall blood sugar. This matters, but it is not even the biggest or most important reason to shift carbs to the evening. The main reason is much simpler and connects directly back to the protein leverage science we just discussed together.
When you have done a great job hitting your protein needs throughout the day, carb cravings naturally decrease significantly. By the time dinner arrives, you may genuinely find you want far fewer carbs than you ever thought possible. Carbs are no longer something your body desperately seeks because the protein needs driving that desperation are already met. Research and large surveys have shown repeatedly that lower protein intake directly leads to higher carbohydrate intake consistently. People keep reaching for carbs all day because their protein target simply has not yet been met at all. But when that protein target is met early and effectively, the biological drive toward excess carbohydrates loses its power. Putting carbs at dinner removes them from sight during the most mentally active and demanding parts of your day. By the time dinner arrives, your appetite is naturally lower, and your cravings are significantly and comfortably reduced already. This is not about suffering through restriction, but about timing nutrition so your biology makes the smart choices automatically.
It removes the psychological battle most people associate with cutting carbs and replaces it with natural, comfortable reduction instead. Think about how profoundly different that is from every conventional diet message you have ever been told before. Most diets tell you to eat less and fight harder, treating your hunger as something to overcome and defeat.
But your hunger was never the enemy. Your hunger was always a biological signal you were missing something specific. Now, let us get into the specific foods that make this entire approach work most powerfully and effectively possible. Not all proteins are created equal in terms of the biological targets they hit inside your body daily. Eggs are the absolute foundation of this breakfast strategy, and the reason goes far beyond simple protein content alone. Eggs contain high-quality protein that meaningfully and significantly contributes to hitting your full protein leverage brain target. But they also contain something that most people consistently overlook, and almost no mainstream nutrition conversation discusses adequately enough. That something is choline, and eggs happen to be one of the very richest dietary sources of choline available. Choline is the direct precursor to acetylcholine in your brain, a neurotransmitter critical to brain energy and metabolic signaling. When you are deficient in choline and therefore low in acetylcholine, your brain energy becomes genuinely and noticeably unstable. Your body then compensates by driving you toward more sugar, because glucose is the fastest available brain energy source. This is exactly where those intense mid-morning sugar cravings originate, not from any personal lack of willpower whatsoever. They originate from a real neurochemical deficit in choline that most people never once connect to their daily cravings.
Eggs address this problem at the root, giving your brain the choline it needs to function consistently and stably. This is why eggs feel genuinely different from other breakfast proteins in a way you can actually physically notice. They do not just fill your stomach, they calm and stabilize your brain energy at the same time. If you can add some beef to your morning eggs, you elevate the nutrient density to another level completely. Beef contains a remarkably broad spectrum of B vitamins and essential minerals, supporting dozens of critical metabolic processes daily. And if you can tolerate beef liver, even just a small amount mixed into eggs, the impact becomes extraordinary. Beef liver is arguably the most nutrient-dense food that exists in any human diet anywhere in the world. It contains extraordinarily high concentrations of bioavailable vitamins and minerals that hit multiple nutritional targets, all at once. We are learning more and more that the body does not simply seek calories, but genuinely specific nutrients daily. When those nutrient needs go unmet, the body keeps driving eating behavior, hoping to eventually find what it needs. This is exactly why highly processed foods are so dangerously problematic in the context of insulin resistance long term. It is not that they are processed, it is that they are almost entirely devoid of real nutrition.
Your body eats processed crackers or chips.
This
finds
chart
no
illustrates the
no B
significant
vitamins,
reduction
no
in
meaningful
insulin
micronutrients
levels,
whatsoever
a key
present.
indicator of
So it sends you back
improving
to the kitchen
metabolic
20
health.
minutes later, still desperately searching for what it actually needs. But when you eat eggs with beef or liver, you hit so many critical nutritional targets all at once. Nutrient needs get met, brain signals shift, hunger quiets, and you move through the morning with complete clarity. That is the sustained clarity that processed food has never once in your entire life provided you naturally. Calcium is another nutrient that plays a far more significant role in metabolic health than most people ever realize. Your body treats calcium and bone density as a high priority need that actively influences your eating behavior daily. One surprisingly practical and free calcium source is crushing a tiny clean piece of eggshell into your morning eggs. Eggshell calcium is bioavailable and genuinely absorbable, making it a practical and completely free daily calcium source available. But if that does not appeal to you, plenty of other excellent and practical calcium sources are available instead. Cheese, cottage cheese, Greek yogurt, Icelandic skyr, and sardines with soft bones are all excellent breakfast options available. Adding any of these dairy-based foods to your breakfast also contributes additional protein toward your leverage target effectively. Dairy proteins are generally fast to moderately digesting, and they complement the slower digesting proteins from eggs nicely. When building the breakfast from today forward, think of it as a specific mission to deliver biological signals. You are delivering protein to hit your brain target and choline to stabilize your brain energy all morning. You are delivering calcium to meet bone density needs and B vitamins to powerfully support your metabolism daily. When all of these bases are covered in one morning meal, your appetite throughout the entire day transforms powerfully. The hunger that once felt completely uncontrollable and relentless quietly becomes manageable, calmer, and far easier to navigate. Not because you are restricting yourself, but because your body is finally getting exactly what it has always needed. That is the distinction that changes everything. You are not fighting your biology, you are working with it completely. You are feeding your body exactly the way it was biologically designed and intended to be fed naturally. Now let me lay out the complete protocol so you have a clear and actionable structure for tomorrow morning. In the morning, your mission is hitting 0.6 grams of protein per pound of your current body weight. Calculate that exact number for your own body, and then build a breakfast that delivers it in one sitting. Eggs should absolutely form the foundation of that breakfast and should cover a meaningful portion of your protein target. Add ground beef, sliced beef, or a small portion of beef liver to maximize your overall daily nutrient density. Include a quality calcium source like cheese, cottage cheese, Greek yogurt, or sardines with soft bones at breakfast. After breakfast, give yourself 30 to 45 minutes, and then take a quality probiotic or sip some kefir. This supports the gut-brain axis communication that reinforces your appetite signals and helps everything function smoothly together. At lunch, have a fast-digesting whey protein shake approximately 15 to 20 minutes before your actual lunch meal. This pre-meal protein strategy satisfies protein-sensing mechanisms, making it naturally easy to eat a smaller, reasonable portion. You will not need to white-knuckle through lunch or fight any desperate biological urge to overeat at all. Your body will naturally guide you toward a reasonable amount of food because it is already partially satisfied beforehand. At dinner, allow yourself carbohydrates if you want them, but notice honestly how much you actually still desire them. Many people discover that by dinner, carb cravings are dramatically reduced without any conscious restriction or willpower being required.
If you want sweet potato, rice, or fruit with dinner, go ahead and enjoy without any guilt whatsoever.
The point is that by dinner time, you are no longer being controlled by those relentless carbohydrate cravings anymore. You are eating from a genuine place of conscious choice, rather than from a place of desperate biological need. And that profound shift in your relationship with food is genuinely one of the most life-changing things imaginable. One important thing to understand clearly is that this protocol is not asking you to obsessively track every calorie. It is asking you to hit specific nutritional targets in a specific sequence and then trust your body fully. Your body is designed to self-regulate appetite when it receives the right signals at the right times daily. Protein leverage is the most powerful of those signals, and you now know exactly how to use it. Insulin resistance did not develop in a week and will not fully resolve in one single week either. But this approach makes meaningful progress happen faster than anything most people with insulin resistance have ever tried before. Every morning you hit your protein target, you are directly reducing the inflammation blocking your metabolic recovery from within. Every day without blood sugar swings is a day your cells have a greater chance to restore their sensitivity. Every evening you sit down and want fewer carbs than expected is real evidence of genuine healing progress inside. Progress with insulin resistance is not always immediately visible on the scale during the early weeks of following this. But it shows up in your energy, your mood, and the way your hunger patterns visibly begin to change. When afternoon energy crashes stop and sugar cravings quiet down noticeably, that is your body genuinely healing itself internally. This approach is not a traditional diet in any sense, and I want you to deeply understand that distinction. It is a nutritional strategy built on how your biology actually works and supported by growing and consistent research evidence. The 6 years I spent struggling with insulin resistance eventually led me to understand everything I am sharing today. Now you have that same understanding, and the only thing left to do is simply take the first step. Start with breakfast tomorrow morning. Calculate your protein target and build your plate around it with real intention. Build your entire meal around eggs and the most nutrient-dense protein sources you can realistically access and afford. Support your gut afterward every single day and give your body the internal environment it genuinely needs to heal. You are not broken. You are not someone lacking willpower. You have simply been missing the right information. Give your brain the protein signal it absolutely requires, and give your gut the support it genuinely needs daily. Give your body the specific nutrients it has been seeking every single day, and simply watch what happens naturally.
Do all of this consistently and watch how differently your body responds and how much easier everything genuinely becomes. One final thing worth mentioning before we close, because it matters more than most people currently realize at all. None of this works as powerfully as it should if you are not sleeping deeply and well each night. Sleep is when your body repairs, resets, and fully rebuilds itself from everything that happened throughout the entire day. Your hormones, inflammatory markers, insulin sensitivity, and your appetite signals are all affected by your nightly sleep quality. Poor sleep can undo much of the good your daytime nutrition does by keeping cortisol levels persistently elevated. Even when your diet is perfectly dialed in and completely consistent, poor sleep undermines every effort you make daily. There is a specific 3-gram compound that research supports for improving sleep depth and overall duration consistently. It is not a sedative and does not knock you out or cause any grogginess the next morning. It simply supports the conditions your body needs to enter deep and genuinely restorative sleep naturally every single night. Healing happens at night. Recovery happens at night. Insulin sensitivity restoration happens during your deepest and most restorative sleep. Protect your sleep with the same sincere commitment you bring to your morning breakfast, because both matter absolutely equally.
Nutrition in the morning. Gut support after breakfast. Smart protein timing at lunch. Carbohydrates saved for the evening dinner. Deep and truly restorative sleep every single night. That is the complete picture. That is the entire proven system. Your biology has been quietly and patiently waiting for you to finally put all of this in place together. You have the information now. You know exactly what protein leverage is and precisely why it matters so deeply. You know how to apply it starting tomorrow morning with confidence and with real biological understanding behind you. The rest is simply execution. And the beautiful thing is that execution gets genuinely easier with every single passing day. Unlike willpower-based diets that become harder the longer you follow them, this approach gets easier as time passes. Your hunger normalizes, your cravings calm, your appetite self-regulates the way it was always designed to function naturally. Start tomorrow. Give it 30 days. Pay close attention to your energy, cravings, and hunger patterns throughout each day. The changes you experience will tell you everything you need to know about how your body is responding. And I am genuinely confident your body will respond in ways that surprise and deeply encourage you moving forward. 6 years was far too long for me to finally figure all of this out on my own personally. You do not have to wait that long. Right now, you already know exactly what you need to do.